Meanwhile,
right.
on the podcast.
Dude, 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 dude. That's not bad.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
All right, let's launch into it then.
Good morning, afternoon, and or evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning back in and hanging out with us. As always, we are the Genesius guys. I'm Nick.
Filling in for Kyle, I'm Seth.
And I'm John.
And we're three Catholic dudes who love to talk about movies. This is the Genesius podcast.
Kyle couldn't be here today. He wanted to play a new video game that he got, which is very uncharacteristic of him. But that's
I was
going
going
to
to say, that's not like him.
Even he got caught up in playing Tears of the Kingdom, I guess, which recently came out.
Yeah.
But we got our own video game to talk about today, don't we, guys?
Yeah, but Kyle doesn't sound like a free guy.
No, he's not a free guy. He is not a free man.
No,
I think he's also not quite an NPC either.
That's true.
Well, considering how much he's not here, it's entirely possible.
That's right. No one here knows. He's done precisely one voice line for this podcast.
So wait. Being an NPC, would he be a non-podcast character?
Yeah. That's excellent.
That was well played.
Agreed.
Yep. That's good. You got any more there?
What?
Got any more saved up?
I'm not quite Ryan Reynolds, I think. With these.
Okay, fair enough.
While Kyle is not a free guy, this movie is about one. Hence the name of the title, Free Guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not about him being free. It's about him getting free. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like freedom is a abstract state. I don't know where I was going to go with that. But Free Guy, directed by Sean Levy. It's written by Matt Lieberman and Zach Penn.
Fun fact about Sean Levy.
Yes.
He is directing Deadpool 3.
Oh, they must have really got along in this movie then.
I think Ryan Reynolds and Sean Levy worked together a lot because I think Sean Levy did the Adam Project.
That was a really good movie. Like,
I haven't seen it. It looks
like,
so good. I have not got the chance to watch it.
Like, I was not expecting literally anything from that movie, and it was like way more than I thought.
I've heard really good things.
Yeah. So, also, point out, music, that's not a typo. You did it right. Christoph
Yeah, I know.
Beck. I didn't know for sure.
Oh, if it was like Christopher.
Yeah. Christoph Beck, release date of August 13th, 2021, had a budget of $125 million. Sadly, kind of like made back its money, but not much more. $331.5 million, which when you think about marketing costs is not that much of a margin.
Wasn't this like the last movie that 20th Century Fox made before being bought out by Disney?
No, Disney had already bought them out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they wanted to use specific things.
Because there were very specific things at toward the end of the movie.
Yes, that's right.
Oh,
Okay.
man.
But like,
I can't wait to get into that.
Were they making it before?
They were.
Yeah.
And so eventually, once they got acquired by Disney, they were like, can't we just go to Lucasfilm and like shamelessly steal some of their stuff?
Well, they don't even need to steal it.
Yeah, literally, it's just part of the intellectual property, which I think Ryan Reynolds had a blast with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rotten Tomatoes critics score of 80%, audience score of 94%. Huge people pleaser movie.
Yeah. Definitely.
Ryan Reynolds on a huge hot streak right now. In turn, he went from like literal zero to hero in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Because of like Green Lantern. Yeah.
Like Green Lantern, X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yeah.
Like
Deadpool.
Yeah, all the way up to like finally he just leans into it, and like Deadpool, he becomes the Hollywood sweetheart, right? He actually propels himself in a way. Yeah.
I don't know. It's a very crass movie.
It is a crass
like
movie.
A sweetheart.
Well, yeah, maybe not. Those don't match up super well. But
he's probably kind of easy on the eyes, I'm guessing.
As Deadpool would put it, he's America's favorite idiot.
Yeah. Well,
except he's not American.
That's true.
The whole point of this being that Ryan Reynolds really like rebuilt his reputation with that movie. And he went from kind of being like a corny rom-com discount science fiction actor to like actual fun person who in a lot of ways can bank off of his personality when he's doing a film. And there are plenty of other people who do that. I mean, Taika Waititi just stars as himself in this movie, basically.
Yeah. This was one of those times where Taika Waititi as himself actually really works for the movie.
Yeah, and we're not. I mean, his characters. We're not saying he is necessarily an himself. But
no, I'm not saying that one bit.
He very. Yeah, you paused the recording. You just have to tap. Oh, did I say the word? I did.
You just said it
Thanks,
twice. Yeah.
Okay. We're not implying that Taika Waititi is a jerk.
There you go.
A butt face. What are other words I could use that are not censorable? Anyway, it's interesting that he plays himself and he has this, kind of his personality can be his character. And there are quite a few actors who are like that. And Ryan Reynolds finally found his groove of sort of like the irreverent, sort of crass humor, but also just kind of like oddly likable because he's aware of how he is. It's a very strange dynamic, but he basically jumps into this really almost family-friendly movie. Obviously, it's not quite there.
Not quite.
It's definitely better than Deadpool, though. In terms of,
yes. I feel like Deadpool is like him unhinged. This is like, like we need a PG-13 version of that.
Deadpool
okay.
is when you take the straitjacket off of Ryan Reynolds. Free Guy's when you give him a few years to mellow out. So yeah. There's all that. USCCB consensus. Do you mind if I read this one?
Wow, this one's really long. Go for it.
Oh, wait. Do we do the Rotten Tomatoes one? I'll do that.
Not yet.
Combining I could here. I'll do the Rotten Tomatoes one. You do this. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Combining a clever concept, sweet, self-aware humor, and a charming cast, Free Guy is frivolous fun.
That it is.
Yep.
I would completely agree.
Yeah. The USCCB consensus here is droll. That's a fourth D. Droll?
Yeah.
What's droll?
Yeah.
Droll is actually, I think that's actually a positive term.
Hey Siri.
It sounds
Define
like dreary,
droll.
almost. Droll.
Curious or unusual in a way that provokes dry amusement. Okay, so maybe not.
Well, actually,
bad.
Okay.
Well, this movie, I can tell you right now that while it is droll, it is certainly not dumb, dull, or disappointing.
Yes, that's correct. So no, not the fourth D. This is a positive D. Droll comic adventure in which Ryan Reynolds plays a contented bank teller in a weirdly dystopian city who, like his best friend, a security guard, played by Lil Rel Howery. Howery? Yes. Yeah. Goes through his highly repetitive daily routine while blithely ignoring the mayhem constantly unfolding around him until making the startling discovery that he is in fact a background figure in a combat-laden, hugely popular video game. Think Grand Theft Auto and you've got it. Yep. Despite his status as a so-called non-playable character, he begins to break the mold of his pre-programmed behavior and assert his individuality. Spurred on by his growing love for the avatar of a gifted real-life game designer, played by Jodie Comer, director Sean Levy's sly celebration of Reynolds' everyman elevates creativity over profit-seeking through its depiction of a sleazy executive, played by Taika Waititi, and his theft and perversion of the far more peaceful title Comer's character and her longtime partner and would-be boyfriend, Joe Keery, developed together. But Matt Lieberman and Zach Penn's script, while ostensibly condemning the havoc by which their protagonist's environment is beset, nonetheless endow his new persona with impressive fighting skills. And there's a vaguely anti-religious tone to a few of their jokes, much stylized but sometimes harsh violence, irreverent and sexual humor, a few uses of profanity, several milder oaths, and at least one rough term, frequent crude and crass language. This is rated A3 for adults.
Obviously.
M for mature. M for mature. The game would be rated M for mature.
Yeah.
It's very interesting how, like, when you grow up and you maybe start to play games like Grand Theft Auto, how much you sort of become desensitized to that, weirdly.
Strange. Okay, like I've definitely played a lot of different games in my day, but like for some reason I never really liked Grand Theft Auto.
It just occurred to me that this is the second video game movie we've talked about today.
That's right. Yeah.
But it's a very different type of video game. Like,
oh yeah.
As weird as it is, like, for some reason, I always like playing as the good guy, or at least somebody who has like some kind of good.
You don't
background.
like playing the great guy?
It could be. Okay. But what I mean is, like,
Don't jump the gun. We'll save it.
For at least games like
kid.
Grand Theft Auto, it's like it always feels like you have to be the bad guy, and I did not like that.
Well, nah, it you don't have to, but it's a lot less fun when you.
Well, you're not gonna like. You're literally not gonna like go get a car, drive, and follow the rules of the road.
Like, I'm going to go get
Ridiculous.
groceries right now in Grand Theft.
Yeah.
This probably exists. Someone needs to make a mod for Grand Theft Auto that rewards just being a good law-abiding citizen. I'm sure they exist, but they need to be there. I might have to go do some research and see if that's the case. I remember buying Grand Theft Auto 5 when they ported it to PC. Because one of the things that I kind of grew up with in high school was there was a YouTuber, Vanoss, who had a whole crew of people who would just do all sorts of crazy fun stuff in this game. The kind of stuff that you actually see in the movie a little bit. They do accurately reflect that, just utter chaos. But I got this game thinking it was going to be like the most fun thing in the world to just like mess around and have a good time. And it was the biggest waste of $60 I've ever had in my life. I haven't really played it. I never really played it that much. And yeah, I'm kind of with you. Those games don't really appeal to me. There's just kind of too much to do.
Yeah.
So, but it's interesting to see how it plays into an actual film concept because this Ryan Reynolds kind of plays that character who is an NPC, but it's kind of revealed he's also a special NPC in a way. Later on,
I saw this movie in theaters, and I remembered that this was actually the plot of this movie I think is refreshingly original.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, the whole idea that, Taika Waititi is essentially this corporate overlord who wants to make money at the expense of making a good game, just like reminds me of every Call of Duty that's come out in the past 10 years and beyond.
Well, any game that's just like they keep churning it out. Like, I mean, it's similar discussion to the Super
It reminds
Mario
me of
Brothers,
Overwatch 2. Sorry. There's a big fiasco around Overwatch 2.
But yeah, of like, there's just a lot of. It's interesting the business versus the art is really kind of the dynamic.
Yeah, and like you need the business to fund the art, but then at what point does the art become about the business and about making money? It's a strange metaphor for Hollywood itself, because metaphors. It's a miracle, really, that any movies come out because they are such large processes that involve so many people. Some of that is kind of mandated through unions and making sure people have jobs. But the other side of that is just like all of the moving pieces of working sound, lighting, cinematography, framing, camera, editing, direction, acting, the craft services, the people who literally feed everyone there. That's what craft services are, by the way. That's like pretty much. There's just so much going on in making a movie that I think this whole
We as
thing
the
of-
Genesius podcast should have a craft services.
I mean, I brought
Whoever
myself
wants to do
Pringles
that
today.
for us,
Huh?
feel free.
Oh yeah, does someone want to do craft? If you would like to
We're
do craft
accepting
services,
applications now.
we will pay you absolutely nothing. But you can come on the show. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about with us for the movie that we're talking about that week.
That's actually not a half bad payment.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they're bringing food that they paid for out of their own, they're basically paying to be on the show.
Which is just you can go on for free. So what's the point?
Yeah. That's kind of strange. Let's not talk about that anymore.
The Genesius podcast does not endorse you having to pay to come on our show.
No, this isn't a sponsor spot. But
You can volunteer just like we do.
we should do like a Hot Ones edition of this show where we just eat progressively spicier wings. as
No,
we talk about the movie.
I could
Oh
not.
my gosh.
I
I will
couldn't
last
handle
about
that.
2 minutes.
I'd be the only one talking by the end, but it would be a lot of weeping and crying.
I promise you, like, I literally could not handle that.
Fair enough. It's not for everyone.
Obviously.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a very fun movie. I do like that at the end of it, they capitalize on the IP that they now have access to as a result of being acquired by Disney.
Did you know that they actually got real YouTubers to be in this movie?
Yeah, I think I recognized quite a few of them. I think like Jacksepticeye makes an appearance. I think Pokimane makes an appearance. I can't remember. There were like a bunch of others, but a bunch of gaming YouTubers. I'm somewhat familiar with that space. Does Markiplier have an appearance there? I can't remember.
Well, okay. I think like an interesting comparison.
Yeah.
Maybe it's completely out of the blue, but like in the way that it uses IP in this versus Ready Player One, where they just like it seems like it's more for like a joke and like to like build the world out, whereas it's like Ready Player One almost like hinges on it.
Well, Ready Player One is, and there's plenty of analysis about how Ready Player One's story is kind of built off of like the romanticizing of nostalgia.
Yeah.
And so in that, it's really meant for you to be like, oh my gosh, that's the Iron, especially in the movie, right? That's the Iron Giant, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't really provide actual value. Like these things that matter so much to people just kind of become props for telling the story. And so this movie, I think, tries to play around with it on a more conceptual and philosophical level of like, what does it mean to have an AI that gains sentience as an NPC?
That's a really interesting concept.
Well, there's a decent amount of like movies that do kind of tackle that, but I think like in this one, what's unique about it is that it's almost in like a rom-com setting. Like,
yeah,
in a way.
I think, yeah, like honestly, this is one of the best executed love stories I've ever seen.
It's a lot of fun. It's very strange in concept. It's very strange.
No, I'm saying like it's very well executed.
Yes,
though.
it is well
executed.
executed.
Like at the very end, when you realize that like that the trigger for the AI was when basically the girl went in the game. I'm just like, that's actually really cool.
Yeah.
That like again, refreshingly original.
Yeah, it's really, it's kind of intriguing. You know, I feel like this movie has even somewhat more relevance nowadays with all of like the AI chatbots and stuff. Can you imagine having NPCs that use chatbots to intelligently converse with you?
That sounds kind of scary, actually.
Yeah.
If you want to see like, or think of the scary side of it, have you ever watched Her?
I've heard of it.
Heard of it.
I've not seen.
Oh,
I've
but it's just
heard of it.
Yeah.
But it's like a weird thing where it's like, yeah, a guy basically falls in love with a chatbot.
Yeah.
You're like,
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yes, it's like that's pretty weird.
Well, and I mean, when Chat GPT 3 came out and became available through various different means, there were journalists writing articles about like, I chatted with this thing for a couple hours and now it's in love with me and wants to marry me. Right.
That's
among other
very
things.
creepy.
Very, very
creepy.
strange.
Yeah.
And it's once it starts to cross that line of like, you can't tell if this is a human or a robot responding to you, it starts to be really conflicting in your own mind too.
Yep.
So it's very interesting if at some point we ever get NPCs in games that can respond as chatbots.
Ooh.
Like that is a puzzling and strange idea that I don't think I want to see.
This is one of those times where I'm actually really happy I'm not a gamer.
Well, and with AI voice, right? You can now basically mimic a celebrity's voice. So they don't even have to pay them the same lines anymore. They just pay for the likeness, right? And they can just have them the AI model, the voice model, say whatever you want them to say at whatever emotional level you want.
This is a weird tangent for this, like, but like it is kind of creepy, especially like if they do that for people who have deceased.
Yes.
It's like, how on earth they don't even have like they're deceased. They can't even like say, oh no, you can't do that.
It's weird enough when they did Peter Cushing for Rogue One, like his actual likeness, even though he was long dead.
Well, the actor actually bears a shocking. The actor that did Tarkin in Rogue One, like in real life, I think his name's like Guy Henry or something.
Yeah, he's actually pretty
bears
close.
a shocking resemblance to a young Peter Cushing.
Yeah, which why didn't they just do that?
I know.
Yeah.
I have that same thought. It's like you could have put him in old man makeup and it would have gotten the message across.
Totally would have sold it.
And like even his voice sounds just like him.
Yeah.
It's scary.
So this, I mean, I'm going to digress a little bit because we did our Star Wars / AI tangent.
Yeah. We did a Star Wars tangent already?
Yeah. We just talked about Tarkin.
Oh, shoot.
I love how Nick just like blacks out and he wakes up when it's done. He's like, wait, did we just talk about Star Wars? Oh no. His forehead is to the, it's okay, man. This is the Genesius podcast. We can do that here.
I do think that like this movie, I don't think it's necessarily super unique in like some of the things that it's like tackling, but I think it was like just refreshing movie. Like it was much better than I thought it would be.
Yeah. I think it captures a really fun moment in internet culture.
This was
was
my third favorite movie of 2021.
What were number 2 and 1?
Number 2 was West Side Story.
Okay.
And number 1 was, of course, Spider-Man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
But this was one of my favorite. This was one of my favorite movies that year.
Yeah, I remember being pleasantly surprised by it. And I like that there's a really great dramatic tension moment where they essentially wipe the NPC's memory. And he has to kind of slowly rediscover what's going on. I got a burp trying to happen. Sorry. Yeah, there's like it takes a strange little moment for him to rediscover kind of what's happening, and the interplay between him and the actual humans, and also like the real world sort of scenes are really interesting. Just because of you've got,
like, who are you talking to? And they're
Yes.
talking to someone in the real world.
Yeah. But the power-ups were a really fun sequence when he got power-ups. All just like the whole like revealing what the heads-up display and everything are.
Yeah.
But I do think it's rather interesting that they make a subtle change here where he's kind of painted to just be an NPC, but in reality, he does actually have a lot deeper underlying specialness to his code. That enables him to grow beyond his programming. So like he was designed to do that actually. So it's in some ways.
Wait, so he wasn't just supposed to be a bank teller that continually got robbed over and over and over and over again? And he doesn't question it.
I love that he and the security guard are just like chilling out, like, oh, just another day getting robbed.
It's just like, everyone put your hands up. Well, you know what to do.
Just drops on the floor. But yeah, I think I loved Taika Waititi's character for how hateable he is.
Oh my gosh.
He strikes me as like
his name is Antoine, spelled Antwon.
Antoine. Literally Antoine.
Antoine.
I mean, he's the kind of guy to be like, hey, fellow kids. Like he's got the hip slang or whatever it is. I'm starting to
He's got that hip slang.
Yeah. That's kind of how it works.
My favorite line of his is when he's interacting with the Stranger Thing guy's best friend, and it's just like, oh, you want to come up with a really great catchphrase? Like, yeah. It's like, all right, we'll come up with it. 3, 2, 1, get back to work.
Also, could we talk about catchphrase?
Like the game, or
just catchphrase?
Oh,
dude,
I love that
he was my favorite surprise character there.
That was an awesome. Yeah,
I love that they. First of all, he just straight up steals Ryan Reynolds' face for this character, as if to like clearly capitalize off of this. But then I love that they have the placeholder stuff. So he's like, catchphrase. It's like, oh man. Which I mean, that happens all the time in video games.
Speaking of dude, that fight between him and Guy.
One
of the so I saw this in the theater with a few friends, and I was not expecting like they're fighting. He's about to give him the death blow, and he puts on the glasses, and it says shield. I'm like, wait, what is that? And then as soon as I saw like the round shield, I was literally like, no effing way.
That cut out to Chris Evans,
And then Chris Evans just going, what the so good.
that was that. I do love how meta this got.
Yeah.
Towards the end.
Yes.
And then later on, he pulls out a lightsaber, and I'm just like I'm sitting in my seat. I'm just like, I'm gonna piss myself out of excitement.
They really should have done a cutout to Mark Hamill being like, really, guys?
I don't know. I think that would have gone a little far.
No, I think it would have. It was perfectly in tune. But I do think the Chris Evans one was particularly perfect, just because that's what Chris Evans is known as.
There was a shocking number of cameos in this movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, Tina Fey's. I don't know if you caught Tina Fey's cameo. She's the mom vacuuming with the one kid.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman is at the beginning.
What is he?
He's the guy in the mask that when he first encounters Jodie Comer's character.
Oh yeah.
Channing Tatum had a really funny cameo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is definitely a movie that captures a particular cultural moment. And there are going to be aspects of it that don't necessarily age well, but it is like a snapshot.
Like the banana cream sandwich joke.
Maybe, yeah. I can't even remember what that was all about.
I cracked up with that joke. I'm like, that's really gross, but that is pretty funny.
Yeah, it everything from the slang that's being used to the creators that are being featured, right? Who knows if they're going to be at all recognizable in 10, 20 years, right? If they're still going to be doing what they do. But did they have Ninja in here? Was Ninja?
I don't think so.
Well, I can't remember. Because that would age poorly, because he's not nearly as big now.
I think there's something about that though. Of it's clearly a movie that's like of the zeitgeist, right? Like of the times, like trying to capture that like moment where it's like, I think it's perfectly fine to have like, I don't think every movie has to be this like utter classic that will last forever.
Timeless,
and everybody has to watch. Like this movie was just straight up fun, and it was really funny, and it was like, I completely enjoyed watching it.
It's such a fun movie.
So thank you all for tuning into this episode of the Genesius podcast. Well, where do we go from here, really? Because
I like the soundtrack.
The soundtrack
Like,
is good.
I'm not necessarily talking about the orchestral score, but like the choice of songs that they put in this movie, I thought was really well done.
Yeah, there's no really comment from me on that end. The music blends in really well, and I do think there's just some strangeness to the I know you said it's a well executed relationship, and I agree, but there's some strangeness to that. I can't remember her name. I'm blanking right now. Millie, yeah, and Guy.
Jeez. Oh, and Guy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she has to deal with an ex, right? And that's real life stuff.
Were they even ever together?
I thought they were.
It definitely made it seem like it.
Yeah,
It was definitely implied, but I don't know if it was explicitly said.
So, I mean, it's also like a weird concept of like, where did they go from there, right? Because like, Guy is not a real person. Like,
well, but I think the whole movie tries to argue about the fact that he is a real person in that sense, and so that's where I think the USCCB consensus.
Yeah, so this is actually that's a really good point. Like, since we seem to kind of run out of topics, here's an interesting question to bring up. So, is artificial intelligence? Because I think that's something. I think this is a really interesting thing to bring up. Like, does artificial intelligence fall into like a pro-life argument? Like, is artificial intelligence, I guess, worth saving?
So
because the catechism, I don't, as far as my knowledge goes, doesn't have anything about it.
I think the main component of this is what is the Catholic Church's stance on artificial intelligence, if it's a thing that can truly exist. Because what we're really talking about here is, does artificial intelligence have a soul?
That's kind of what I'm.
Yeah,
that's kind of where I'm getting.
So and actually, I want to parallel to the iRobot story.
Yeah.
In that idea of like, when a program becomes complex enough and quote unquote intelligent enough that it starts writing its own code and improving itself, right? At what point do all of these different functions and stuff come together and form a soul? And is there really such a thing as a soul in artificial intelligence? Because we do believe that humanity is, we are all gifted with a supernatural soul, right? That is that resides in our physical bodies while we are here on this earth. And can we say the same about any kind of artificial intelligence that we might create? And so that becomes a very strange discussion. And I'm pretty sure the Catholic Church's answer to that is, we don't have the capability to produce a soul. We can produce a complex series of algorithms that might build on itself and start to resemble something like that. But at the end of the day,
that's why it's called artificial.
It's why it's called artificial. Yeah. And there is the other side of that argument where people would ask, what really is different between that and a soul, right? And of course, if you're reducing those arguments to the most basic levels, it's really, do you believe that God created man in his own image, right? And anyone who's not,
I guess you could say, if you created artificial intelligence, in a way you're kind of creating God. In a way you're kind of playing God.
Yeah.
Which time and again shows to be not a great idea.
Yeah.
So
Truman Show, guys.
As much as I go ahead, John.
Well, there's even like it seems like it's a spectrum, and like, how on earth do you like know at what point is it God and what point is it man doing it? Like, I don't know. I think this actually started like way back in the 90s, kind of like. There's a lot of like 70s, 80s and movies like kind of thinking about like, what does it mean? Like, even 2001 they started like into artificial intelligence, but like I think they kind of played a lot off of, I think, Ghost in the Shell, like the original.
Oh yeah,
thing was like the thing that started it. It was like, what if you implanted memories from a person into a robot? At what point do they become like a human? Like, if they have all the experience of a human, but are in an artificial body, like it gets to like stuff that's like, I don't think this will ever like happen in our lifetime. I mean, there's chat bots, but like, that's not really a person.
I think we want to imagine we're not getting close to that point, but I feel like we are.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be clear here, I think there is a point where artificial intelligence will become advanced enough that you can certainly interact with it as you would interact with another intelligent being.
That kind of scares me.
Yeah. Especially when you start applying like all the concepts of how do you treat a person, an individual, right, of that level. Like, what does it mean to have feelings for an artificial intelligence, to respect an artificial intelligence? Right?
Oh, we're getting into like Blade Runner territory.
Yeah, like, this gets really, really interesting.
Like, where it's like, do you have police that go around like saying who's a robot and who's a human, and like, can you have interactions with that? Like,
can you have
meaningful
just like interactions with them?
That, and like, when they become defective or whatever, do you like take them out? And
so I'm not here to say whether or not AI can possibly have a soul. Based on what I understand of my Catholic faith, I don't believe that's necessarily possible. But there is a point we're starting to get close to where we will have to interact with beings who can take action based on how we treat them. And we're already starting to see to see how that can get really weird really fast. Hence the whole thing of like chatbots falling in love with people.
That's it's so strange.
It gets bizarre.
I wonder, like,
what?
I don't know if it's just media and
conceived
stuff,
this in their brain,
but like, it almost like feels like it's slightly demonic. I don't know. of just like having these things. Like,
I don't completely disagree with you.
it is a little strange of like, I don't know, like creating your own person and then like, it's just weird because like at what point are people going to like then like how is a person supposed to stand up to like robots? Like if this person's going to be like a robot that's like perfectly the person that you're looking for, then you never have to change yourself and like try to actually love another human being.
I do think AI is best applied in single use case scenarios. But if people start to form complex intelligences, I'll call them complex intelligences.
Sure.
That you can actually interact with and have agency as their own individuals, but can also be swayed and influenced like other people. Then that's going to get really dangerous really fast. It's definitely playing with fire. And unfortunately, all the people kind of at the top doing this stuff on the executive level, I mean, they called for a delay in any further development of like ChatGPT and stuff, or whatever, or maybe it was Bing or something like that. Like they didn't want the next version of Bing to come out or whatever. I can't remember what it was. They wanted to stall it. And these people include like Elon Musk, but basically all of this was that so they can catch up too, right? And be building their own stuff. So we're at a very strange point culturally with AI. And I think if we're not careful with it, it's going to start messing with us because, you know, imagine you sandbox it, right? But then it also learns how to unsandbox itself. It's like, that gets scary.
That's very weird.
I almost feel like, have you ever watched any of the like Black Mirror stuff?
Not
it just
quite,
seems like
yeah.
very similar. It's just like, where's the like it can just get out of control very quickly.
Well, and
any kind of like small concept can go like, sideways really fast.
Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Yeah,
I'll reference another show too, Person of Interest, with Jim Caviezel.
Yeah.
Who plays one of the main characters.
I forgot he was.
That is a fantastic show about the ethics of creating AIs with agency and access. And it's interesting because the main character raises his artificial intelligence like he would raise a child, effectively, and is teaching it all of these lessons on how to value all life, but also being forced to make a decision to minimize loss as well. And so it's really a fantastic show. If you have the opportunity to watch it, I would. It's like 5 or 6 seasons long, but this film, as simple as it is, Free Guy, it does bring a lot of questions together about how artificial intelligence can play into our lives in the coming years. And I can't tell if this movie was made with that in mind, or if we've just seen a lot of growth and progression that have made us look back at this even 2 years later with very different eyes.
I feel like it's the latter.
I would guess it's the latter. I don't think Ryan Reynolds is an AI scholar by any means. I don't think he's necessarily thinking on that level, or the writers for their credit as well. So, yeah, very, very strange stuff. It's a sobering thought to a really fun film about an NPC who gets to kick butt. Catchphrase.
The conflict in the real world is pretty interesting.
It is. Yeah, I really enjoyed that aspect of it as well.
Where it's like he basically tried to because when I went into this movie, I was not expecting there to be some kind of like lawsuit conflict in this movie. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, right. Because the guy is basically stealing this Taika
Stealing
Waititi
their
dude.
program.
Yeah, Antoine is basically stealing their program. Correct.
Yep.
And they're trying to prove that the program is in the game so that they can get it shut down.
And the way it's revealed that it is in there is very cool.
Yeah.
Like some of the big twists in this movie, I think, are beautifully executed.
I agree. Yeah. I guess that's like a really interesting question with like all the new technology that's coming out. What?
I thought you were gonna poke me for a hot second. That is where people put their hand if they're about to jab me in the side.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Okay, good.
And if,
Continue, John.
and if I were, I'd make it more subtle,
But
Oh shit.
like that.
you didn't notice it, Seth. But when you were talking about that, I also did like this, but I didn't actually do anything.
I hate being in the middle of that. Oh man. Okay, continue.
But I just like at what like just intellectual property and like how that works with computers and stuff, and like everybody can like write code and stuff. Like, I mean, you're much more into this being in programming of just
Yes.
like there's so much like open source stuff. Like, how did it seems really weird that it's like trying to like who owns what and like how does that all work and like what is
Yeah.
and
Well, I mean, one of the big debates right now is artificially generated art that is fed off of models of other images. In fact, Getty
Yeah.
Images, I think, won either a lawsuit or basically they won some kind of blocking order to prevent their images from being used to train stuff like Midjourney and other models like that. Midjourney is kind of known for being like the most artsy-fartsy of the AI-generated models right now.
okay.
But the essence is that if my work of art was used to train an AI model that then generates other works of art that are, and in part, whether large or small, derived from elements of my art, are they ripping off my art, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at least at the moment, the ruling is that yes, the models that are trained off of these images are effectively violating copyright law by doing so, which is really interesting because when you talk about humans deriving art from other humans, that's a different story.
Well, for instance, working in architecture, you have to look to all the other buildings that have ever been made. Like it's like you're not like just coming up with something out of the blue. Like you're progressing like a certain thing.
Well, and that's where the argument is like, what makes those AI generative art models different from us?
Yeah.
Right. From humans who have to learn what an art form is. Like you learn how to build new Lego set stuff in large part by looking at other Lego sets, right? And seeing what other people have built and getting those ideas. It's true for that. It's true for music. It's true for any creative expression. But when we do that and we incorporate elements of that work in ours, at what point is it considered transformative and therefore fair use?
Mm-hmm.
And the fair use discussion has been huge on YouTube and other stuff like that, where like YouTubers will have just a short clip of music, a couple seconds long in their video, and they'll get a copyright strike on their channel, even though that couple seconds of music is surrounded by a completely original piece of content. It's just it happened to play.
So I mean, this could even come into like hip hop music that use like backing tracks or whatnot of like other,
sampling.
Sampling. Yeah.
That's exactly it. So it's a very strange world that we're getting into right now, where questions like this come up. And we're actually, companies are releasing AI models, but there's also starting to be AI models that are open source and that you can run off of something as small as like a Raspberry Pi.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually have a friend who's been digging through some of that, and he's been pointing me in a couple of these directions. He made a system that interfaces with like ChatGPT 3.5, and then also interfaces with this deep learning AI voice simulator where he can tell it what celebrity to impersonate. And so he has a workflow developed where Scarlett Johansson summarizes his inbox for him, his email inbox.
That's creepy.
It's nuts. And in fact,
So weird.
I have to point out an anecdote. At one point, he was trying to figure out how to get this model to work properly. And so he asked for this voice reply, and it's Scarlett Johansson, but it starts to get a little glitchy. And at one point, it freaks out and transitions in like this glitchy mess into like a male voice. It was.
That sounds like something that would be in like a horror movie.
It straight up scared the crap out of me.
So
I'll have to play it for
do
you
you know
later.
who voices the computer in her?
Scarlett Johansson,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's-
I know exactly what movie you're talking about now.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting
Yeah.
to see if they could get Majel Barrett to. Is Majel Barrett? She does the Star Trek computer stuff. I can't remember if she's still alive or not. But yeah, they like it's interesting when we start to think about these things are actually accomplishable now. That we're going to start to see them pop up in more and more places, and we're going to see a lot of legal arguments start to do that as well. I love how this is about a movie, but the movie just brings
Yeah.
up so many other questions in 2023.
Yeah.
Well, there's also this question I feel like that they kind of address of. They try to make like this work of art that's kind of like Minecraft, right? Let's just say like because like
Yeah.
you're generating your own.
Yeah, it's
world
very
and stuff.
Minecraft like.
But like he makes that into something that's like Grand Theft Auto, and I almost feel like I think there's a realm where both arts are like fine. I don't really like have like you and I both play like video games that have like violence to them,
Yeah.
and I don't think there's like a huge issue, but like there is something like I don't know more intrinsically good, I guess, about like their initial program. It seems like
Yeah. Well, their
a little more
initial
wholesome.
wholesome, yeah.
Well, yeah, their initial program had the philosophical idea of just allowing you to build life,
Yeah.
right? Whereas this sort of world that this corporate overlord is trying to sell is very much a tailored experience where people that can like just embody the worst of internet culture, because people tend to mistreat each other on the internet.
Yeah.
Wait, really?
Yeah,
No.
it's a novel concept, I know.
Mhm.
But it's it seems to be in this way that people like to hide behind an internet persona when they do these things, and that gives them the agency to like express themselves in the worst possible way.
Yeah.
And so do you want to do that, or do you want to build a house? Right? Do you want to do something that's genuinely constructive, both literally and figuratively? Or do you want to just like mess around with people who may or may not want to be messed around with?
Well, and I think for me, like I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with playing something like Call of Duty, but like I think just looking at the two different programs of like the world that Free Guy was initially in, it seems like there's constant like adrenaline, like trying to get always the like every single time, like there's like everything that's drawing their attention. There's so many different things that are like popping out and
Oh, like just the
like euphoria of it, or
Yeah,
like
the
the
hit.
hits that they were getting, where it's like the other world that they made, it was much more like
Peaceful.
peaceful and like trying to like actually
yeah, and honestly, that might not sell. Like
Mhm.
that's the thing about art. It doesn't necessarily sell because not all art is a sensation.
even if it's like much better, like it's such like an interesting like aspect with art as a business is like sometimes even like the best art doesn't necessarily always sell and have like the biggest audience, and sometimes absolute crap has like the biggest audience ever.
Yeah,
But-
it's kind of shocking. I a couple of different examples roll through my mind, but I'm not gonna list them out. I don't need to rag on them that much.
Mhm.
But yeah, it is interesting how there are things that sell that are art, but then there's a lot of art that does not sell because it's not designed to appeal to everyone. It's just an expression of an idea. So yeah, I don't know, because I think about my own experience playing Minecraft, right?
Yeah.
It's a game that I've played on and off now for, over 10 years, honestly, almost 12 or 13 at this point. And I have seen the whole spectrum of experiences in that game, from the most constructive to very much like the Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah,
thing
griefing and
of,
stuff.
people just don't treat each other very nicely. And it's actually, when I first moved up here for a little while, I was managing a Minecraft community, and we were trying to recreate essentially this other community that had stopped operating. We were trying to sort of mimic a similar cultural feel and environment, and we tried hosting our first tournament for our primary minigame, our main minigame on that server. And almost immediately we had like a small prize pool. We almost immediately had people who came in and started like hacking the server. And they just turned it into a nightmare. And from that point forward, I was trying to do something that was nice and artistic and expressive. And they just came along and like threw it away. It's like, well, probably not for me then to keep trying to do that, because that weighed on me a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is interesting to see this movie does pretty well reflect that entire dynamic between all the players and even the dynamics outside of the game of what happens to the game. So that's just what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
Nick, what are you thinking about?
It's a lot to process.
We covered a lot on this episode.
Yeah.
What do you think about the movie? What do you maybe you want to score it? What if you were to give it a score?
Oh,
Nick?
I see what you're doing. I mean,
Tell me what time.
I loved this movie a lot.
It's a lot of fun.
Like, it was one of the most fun movies I'd seen. Like, I remember me and the other guys I went with, we reacted so strongly to the movie that somebody came up to us afterward and complimented us on our loud reactions. He said it made my movie going experience that much better.
Yeah.
So I have a soft spot because like my enjoyment of it helped somebody else enjoy it.
It can be a social experience.
Yeah.
It's a fun time.
Yeah, it's one of the most fun movies I've ever seen. The scene with Cap's shield and the lightsaber gets me every time. Like, I was watching it on Friday by myself, and I still cheered because it was so freaking cool.
That was great.
But I think I can't score this any lower than a 95.
Wow.
Like I said, it was one of my
moly.
It was one of my favorite movies of the year.
95. All right. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, just like, especially when we do these like 3 movies, I feel like I tend to compare like which ones did I enjoy the most and like I think are like better or worse than the other ones. But yeah, no, I think I actually liked this one the most out of the 3
That we've talked about today.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I think I'll just go with a 85. Because I think it's not like something any like super original, but it is definitely, there are original aspects and it's like enjoyable and really funny and yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go on brand. I'll say 80 because
I wondered if that's what you were gonna give it.
Yep, for a Genesius overall score.
No way.
No, not
No.
solid.
No.
Hold on. What was your score?
95.
95.
85.
85. Okay, so that's 180. What can I add that's divisible by 3? 81. 81.
No way. Are you butchering your scores so you can get it?
87 is the overall Genesius score.
All right.
Change my score to an 81 right now.
Yeah, on it.
Wow.
What
That
was
is
it?
funny.
87?
87 is the overall. 81 is the Seth score. I'll bump it 81. I was kind of thinking 81 actually.
Were you really?
I legitimately kind of was, but I
Oh, that's
decided
amazing.
80 seemed like a more appealing number, but since it led to such an unappealing average, I was like, no.
Well, this is a Genesius first as far as recording goes. We got a whole number for all 3 episodes.
Had to do it for the meme.
87 though, I think is an appropriate score.
Yeah, I agree.
this
I
movie.
agree. So thank you for joining me on this discussion, gentlemen. And thank you, listeners and viewers, for tuning into this episode of the Genesius podcast. If you enjoyed our content and you want to see more or hear more from us, please subscribe to our podcast on whatever podcasting platform you use. You can find us on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. You can also find us on YouTube. Our handle is @Genesius Podcast, the one and only. where you can see the shenanigans that we get up to as well. Some pretty cool Lego sets. Again, we're kind of bare this week because we had a lot of people in the room earlier for our Super Mario recording. So,
Yeah, I think this room was due for a rearrangement anyway.
yeah, but I do like this setting. This is a lot less
This
cramped.
is so much.
Yeah.
This is so much better.
Yeah, I won't even need to bring a tripod anymore. It's perfect.
Yeah.
So our camera's just sitting up on the top of that shelf next to the mushroom. So
And
yeah,
Mushroom.
And if you would like us to talk about a movie that you enjoy or a movie related topic that you'd like to discuss here on the podcast, if you want to provide feedback to help make our show better, or even if you just want us to pray for you, especially if you want us to give you a prayer shout out here on the podcast, send us an email at genesiuspodcast@gmail.com. That's GENESIUS podcast@gmail.com. Additionally, if you want to make an appearance on our show as a guest, make sure you know one of us three personally, and make sure you've listened to an episode of ours, which if you've gotten this far, that means you are part of the way there. Good job. Just reach out to one of us three directly or send us an email at genesiuspodcast@gmail.com.
yes, sir.
Finally, please spread the word about Genesius Podcast, whether it be on social media or word of mouth. If you're listening, turn to whoever you're in proximity to.
Hey, John,
Hey, Seth.
catchphrase. Have you heard about the Genesius podcast?
Catchphrase. Yes.
Let catchphrase equal yes.
I am Groot.
Logline.
Might as well be saying I am Groot.
Or you could actually just send them a text instead of being weird like we are.
Yeah. Sorry. Send a text to all your friends, family, and coworkers about our podcast, whether it be right at this
That was a
moment,
really clunky transition.
at a family dinner, a work meeting, or on date night.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's different.
Ooh, he's,
I might
he's
like that
changing it up. Okay. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, please tell them about us. And please,
Our brains are like neurons. Fire them.
please pray for us as we continue to create content and use our gifts to give glory to God.
Oh, all right.
Intentions for today,
Prayers, guys,
gentlemen.
Yeah.
Pray for the people who are working on AI.
Yeah.
Some of them may understand a little bit more what they're doing. Some of them probably don't. But I think it's worthwhile to talk about. So, yeah.
Yeah, I also think pray for artists to
Mhm.
focus on good art and not about the money or whatever is most popular.
That's good. Nick, would you like to lead us? Do you have an intention?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would like to offer up a prayer for real and authentic love
Amen.
instead of, love through an AI. Like,
Mhm.
like finding if your vocation is marriage, finding that person and loving them truly and authentically.
Yeah.
And I would be happy to lead us in prayer.
Excellent.
It's also my turn today. So,
Very good.
Yep.
name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Come, Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together today. For just this fellowship where we can talk about some of the deeper things when we least expect it. We want to give especially a shout out to all those who either desire marriage or are called to marriage, that they may find love authentically and that their intentions also be authentic. I like to pray for those who are working on AI and that they aren't abusing their own intelligence that could lead to something destructive. And what was the other intention again?
Art and art.
Yeah, and just for artists that you may use them to just express themselves in a way that glorifies you, and and to create art that we can appreciate and enjoy and praise you for it. We lift up all these intentions in your name. Amen.
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 Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. St. Genesius,
Pray
Pray
for
for
us.
Well, John, Seth, thank you for joining me today here on the show.
Thank you
Thanks for
always.
roasting.
Yep, thanks for hosting.
Always happy to host. And listeners and viewers, thank you for tuning in with us today. I nearly lost my train of thought. Thank you for tuning in with us today. We will be back next Friday at noon to talk about Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. But until then, we are the Genesius guys. I'm Nick.
Filling in for Kyle. I'm Seth.
I'm John.
And don't have a good day. Have a great day.
I was wondering if you're going to do that.
Oh, I plan on doing that.
Okay.